This is HBR News number 377. Elon Musk to buy Twitter for real this time? Woman charged with castration and a bunch of other heinous things that there isn't enough room for in the title, where we reflect on the stories of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello everyone and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. Happy belated, I think it's belated, Canadian Thanksgiving. I don't know. I think it passed already, but I could be wrong.
Not that you have any thanks to give.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I mean, if it applies, then yes, happy Canadian Thanksgiving Day, and
they're not dead yet, so there's still a chance.
Yeah,
and I guess right. we're allowed to visit Canada now, right?
I don't know. Are we?
I don't know.
I think they dropped their ridiculous mandates. Like, for as evil as the Trudeau government is, they're not as evil as the CDC. So maybe we can have an ICMI this year, maybe in Canada. Let's see what happens.
Oh, that would be kind of great. So yeah,
I mean next year. This year's a bust.
This year's a wash. All right. So, and I wouldn't want to be up in Canada in like November. That sounds like
good God, no!
Yeah.
I've been there in December. It's so cold, it makes me angry.
Yeah.
All right. So there is that, and also be sure to wish my wife a happy birthday. Her birthday is tomorrow. I don't know if anyone's going to be around, but wish my wife a happy birthday. Yeah, so I know it's a little ahead, but I'll bring it back up again when I do whatever show we have tomorrow. Anyway.
Happy birthday, stapler. How many staplers do you have left? How many staples do you have?
I think we only have one clip. All right, so I hope you guys are doing well this week and that you're laughing at all of this absurdity so that you're not consumed by it. I am your host, Brian, and I'm joined by, as always, my co-hosts. Well, at least for now, we don't have... Oh, yeah, we do have Mike J. So, Mike J, Dr. Randercam, and Hannah Wallen. We have a great show lineup for you guys today, so please be sure to continue the conversations both in the chat as well as the comments section. On this week's HBR News show, we're going to be talking about the FBI team that was involved in the Hunter Biden laptop shenanigans. Florida comes forward about the jab. Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter and where it might be sort of sitting on that, and more. So stick around. It's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only show. So one of the patrons sent me and tagged me in a post, and this is like one of the advantages you might have from becoming a member is that you can do this yourself. If you come across a piece of content that you think we should talk about, or that you think would make for, like a really interesting subject for a show, you can always come into our community, drop a link, tag one of us in it. Usually it's me or Allison or both of us, and then we'll take a look at it. So I got this video called The Longest Dating Requirements List, and it's a clip from the Steve Harvey Show. And I'm not going to play any of it now, but I did preview it, and yeah, this is going to be kind of fun. And that's all you got to know. Like, it's basically, he asked the woman for all of the traits she's looking for in a man, and she gave him, I guess, a really big list. And she's kind of feeling like there's nothing wrong with this, right? This is all reasonable stuff. And I haven't finished the video, but we could start looking at it in Patron Show. And if you guys want to, be a part of that, then please consider becoming a participant or a member by going to feedthebadger.com and setting up a monthly subscription. It's the only way you'll be able to watch the additional content. And if you don't want to wake up one morning to find that we have been yeeted from the internet because they just have had enough, and to be honest, today's show could be the one that does it, considering some of the subject matter, please go to badgerfeed.com. That's badgerfeed.com. That's where our content lives. All right, so before we get into the main stories, I do have a couple of really short ones I wanted to mention. First, Angela Lansbury has passed on. From do you guys know who Angela Lansbury is?
Yeah, you just get an aw.
Yeah.
No,
no one's gonna go. No one's gonna go. Oh, yeah, she was so young. She died before her time. She was 96.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like when we lost Betty White. She was a fun actress to watch. And like I remember her obviously from, like, everybody probably remembers her from Murder, She Wrote, but I remember her from Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
Bedknobs and Broomsticks. That was a great
Yes.
film. It was like Mary Poppins, but slightly less gay.
That was one of my favorite Disney movies when I was a little kid, and I mean, I liked a lot of the older stuff too, like the old black and white ones. But I mean, that movie was just a great movie, and it's just sad to lose her. I'm sure she probably was retired, but.
One of the first movies to integrate live action with cartoons in that soccer bit, and that made us fall about in the aisles laughing back in the day. I mean, you can't credit Angela Lansbury for it; it was the animators who made it funny. But she was, I guess she helped. Not every actress can interact with cartoons.
Yeah, I've heard that it's pretty difficult because what you're acting to is like a tennis ball in the air that's going to be screened out or drawn over, and so you're not getting any feedback. Like when actors engage with each other on screen, they feedback from each other, they bounce off of each other, and I haven't done very much of that. I've done a very little bit of that, and you will never find it because I'm not very good at it, so I won't tell anybody where it is. But I have to. It's hard. It's hard. I would have to do a lot of practicing. But I really, her performances were just fun to watch. She picked characters to try out for him and play that were just neat characters, and she did a good job. And it's kind of like seeing an elderly family member that you always enjoyed visiting. Pass that they're gone, and it was going to happen, but it still sucks.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to all the animators on Bedknobs and Broomsticks, because I'm sure it was difficult to act ahead of the animated characters, but the animators had to fill in the back to everything he was doing, and no one's going to speak up for the animators who really made that movie awesome. And no one remembers their names either, and I'm sure some of them were women as well.
Yeah.
So hooray for all the Koreans who did the animating.
Yeah, and also, I know her from Murder, She Wrote, but also the tea kettle from Beauty and the Beast. In case some of you guys are not sure.
Yeah.
There's another famous movie that she was in that most people won't know about, or at least they won't know about her being in it. And they probably have never seen the movie, but they probably used the term that was coined by it. She was in Gaslight.
Also, if you want to be if you want to see something, look up like very old pictures of her. She was kind of hot. She was young. That's all I'll say. And she was doing movies. So, kind of like Helen Mirren, like where got like the distinguished older actress that people know, from contemporary films, but then you can like go back in time and look at her when she was like in her prime. And she was nice. All right. So, anyway, sad to hear, but it was kind of inevitable. Thank you for all that you've done for us, Angela Lansbury, and Then the other thing is this. This is probably like the worst follow-up story ever. But I don't know if you guys know this, but today is National Coming Out Day. Because every day or week or month is something. And today is National Coming Out Day. So who decided to come out, I guess as gay, I'm not really sure, but Madonna. And she wanted everyone to know it. And it should surprise nobody. But I'm just pointing it out because now you're all in the know. And that means something. So, yeah. That's all I can say. Madonna's out. Shocking.
All I heard, Brian, all I heard is no one was paying attention to her for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course.
Every time Madonna makes the news, I think back to a mostly mock interview that oh shoot, who was it? Gilbert Gottfried did with Dr. Demento years ago. I was in college, so 1993 maybe 92 that I heard this, and he was talking about Madonna. He talked about a bunch of other things, and some of it, was pretty obvious gags. But this, I think he was 100% serious, but he was doing it in a mocking way. And he mentioned Madonna and her fame and her being controversial and everything, and said, the one thing that you could do to kill Madonna's career is just accept everything that she does and says, and say, oh, okay, whatever, that's go right ahead, more power to you, that kind of thing. And that's basically what happened, because somebody else came along at the time was more controversial than she was. As soon as Britney Spears became controversial, like, Madonna became irrelevant, completely irrelevant. And now Madonna has talent, so she's gonna have fans. Her music is good. Her older music is great. Like, I still love the pop hits from the 80s and everything. She kind of went off the deep end in the 90s, but that's stardom.
Yeah.
But
well, it's hard to keep up.
It's true. She went from
market.
And what he said, the grain of truth, the giant, comet-sized grain of truth in what he said was that basically when Madonna's career ceased to be about using her vocal talent and her talent as a choreographer, and her ability to sell a public a set of lyrics that mostly were just inane lyrics. Like, they weren't exciting lyrics for the most part. Then she turned to controversy, and that kind of destroyed. She couldn't keep up with it. Eventually, somebody was going to be a bigger train wreck. That's the problem with being a professional train wreck. Somebody is always going to come along and be a bigger train wreck than you. And she can't figure out, because she is a boomer, she can't figure out how to be a train wreck in the modern world. Nobody's going to pay attention to Madonna coming out of the closet, right? Oh. If Madonna wants to train wreck herself back into fame, she's got to say something transphobic or attack, the any of the protected classes that are currently popular to defend right now. So any other part of, like, the LGBTQ quilt bag alphabet soup collective, like, if she came along and said, oh, asexuality isn't real, or something like that, which would be a totally Madonna thing, yeah, then she'd be controversial enough people would start paying attention to her again. But nobody gives a flying fuck if Madonna's a lesbian or bisexual or anything like that. Like, she could come out as a trans man and people would be like, oh, okay. Do exactly what Gilbert Gottfried said to Dr. Demento, that, Madonna's career would be over in a heartbeat if you just accept everything she does. And I guess she's not going to figure that out. She's just going to keep doing what she's doing. And there's always going to be hangers on because, like I said, in the midst of doing that, she still has the Madonna voice, and she still is a talented and skilled choreographer. And if she had just focused on those things, I would probably love her stuff. But she didn't. So I don't.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's basically seeking attention and hasn't grown out of that. And it probably will never happen. I mean, she's just sort of like, I don't know. You know, it's like, what was that movie with the woman who used to be, I think it was about a woman who used to be, you know, really famous, real famous actress. And she's like getting older. And I think at the end,
ready for my close-up, Mr. DeVille.
Yeah, I'm ready for my close-up.
I cannot remember the name of the movie, but that's like the most famous. Like, I don't know if I've even said it right, but that's the most famous moment in the movie where she's, you know, she comes down the stairs and she's like, I'm ready for my close-up, but she's actually just crazy.
Yeah, and she's
because she's lost her mind.
She's terrifying to look at. So, like that's kind of where I think Madonna's at. She's doing that. She's like in her 60s. Sunset Boulevard. Thank you, Meredith. She's in her 60s. She's totally. I'm sorry, but you're a has-been. Like, you should be. Maybe you could be producing.
Well, you know what the sad thing is?
Lifting up other, you know, younger performers. You could be doing things like that, but you're making.
The sad thing is she's not. She's not a has-been. She has a shitload of fans, mostly women. And this is like, these are the same women that will post Marilyn Monroe pictures with that stupid quote about not deserving you at your best if you can't accept her at her worst, you know, like, and it's the same attitude. Like, Madonna's a professional train wreck, so she attracts train wrecks. If somebody, like, if you, this is actually a pretty good litmus test. If any of our male listeners, if you are interested in a gal, and then you find out she's a huge Madonna fan right now, like today, she's a huge Madonna fan, run. Just fucking run.
Yeah, I agree. So, anyway, congratulations, Madonna, on your coming out as something that we all knew was probably the case anyhow. All right, next up, we're going to get into the actual story. So I'll start with the FBI. In a court filing, let me put the picture up. In a court filing, Facebook's parent company, Meta, identified FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force, FITF, as the team involved in communication to the platform in order to censor the original Hunter Biden laptop story. So it's like, you know, before the election of 2020. An update to a complaint entered on October 6th reads, quote, pursuant to the third-party subpoena, Meta has identified the FBI's FITF as supervised by Laura Demlow and Elvis Chan as involved in the communications between the FBI and Meta that led to Facebook's suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story, end quote. According to Truth Press, quote, the FBI has declined to comment on the updated lawsuit, which now names the FBI as a defendant. The Bureau said previously that it is routinely in touch with U.S. companies, but, quote, cannot ask or direct companies to take action on information received, end quote. The FITF was established in 2017 to identify and counteract foreign influence operations targeting the U.S. Laura Demlow is a supervisor of FITF and named as a defendant in this case. When asked about goals for approaching mal, mis, and disinformation, Demlow said that, quote, we need a media infrastructure that is held accountable. We need to early educate the populace, and that today, critical thinking seems to be a problem currently, end quote. The second defendant, Elvis Chan, is a special agent who manages the cyber branch at the FBI's San Francisco field office, who bragged on a recent podcast that his office, quote, was very involved in helping to protect the U.S. elections in 2020, end quote. From Truth Press, quote, "We talked with all of these entities I mentioned regularly, at least on a monthly basis, and right before the election, probably on a weekly basis. If we were seeing anything unusual, sharing intelligence with technology companies, with social media companies, so that they could protect their own platforms. That's where the FBI and the US government can actually help companies," Chan said. Plaintiffs in the case said that helping social media companies protect their platforms includes censorship and suppression of speech at the FBI's behest. Chan also organized meetings with LinkedIn from 2020 through the present, with agendas provided indicating the meetings included going over censoring election-related posts on social media. Chan organized similar meetings with other big tech firms, plaintiffs have said.
So just a word of warning. So people do not try to find Elvis Chan's social media profiles. And if you do find them, do not ask him if he's related to either Elvis Presley or Chris Chan. And most of all, do not ask him if he is the love child of Elvis Presley and Chris Chan, because that would be very mean.
That's not a real name. That's not a real person. Get the fuck out. That's not. No way. That's
a real name.
Person.
So just for the record, because we're probably gonna get inundated with people misunderstanding the First Amendment and so on, and my private company, everything. My private company doesn't work the moment the FBI is involved. And if I understand correctly, there have been other types of lawsuits that have addressed this kind of interference with a private company by the government. And the phrasing of the First Amendment starts out, "Congress shall make no law," and then it gives a list of things. There's the bit about an establishment of religion, and then there's prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right to the people peaceably to assemble. And the internet is pretty much becoming a location. It is as much a location as it is a publisher. Cyberspace is a location to put your thoughts, and it is a place to assemble in terms of mass communication. And there are people whose entire relationships with some of their friends is strictly online. I've got friends that I'm pretty close to emotionally and care about quite a bit, and have had in-depth conversations with and prayed for and been prayed for by and everything, that I've never met in person. And I'm sure most people have at least some friends that they would grieve if they lost them, and they've never met them in person because of the internet. So it's a place. It's a mental place, but it's a place. And therefore, both the aspect of free speech and press and the things that go along with free speech and the right to assemble peaceably, those both should apply. And in the past, it's been interpreted that a government agency that is funded by Congress constitutes an action by Congress. So if a government agency enforces a restriction on your speech, and it's an unconstitutional restriction, it's a violation of the First Amendment. If a government agency is involving itself in a company's choice on what speech to restrict, that is going to become a huge First Amendment question for the court to address, because we're still talking about a government agency informing the censorship of political speech and informing the prevention of peaceful assembly online. And unless you are literally planning a violent crime in the course of your communications online, all internet assembly has to be considered peaceable, because nobody has to participate in it. nobody has to see it. Nobody has to remain aware of it or alert to it or watching it. If they don't want to, you can shut it off. So it cannot be considered violent. You can escape from it at any time. And unless that there's a crime in progress, it can't be considered assembly that isn't peaceful. So if they address both of those, it's going to be interesting to see how far this goes and what the court ultimately rules and whether it actually has an effect or not on the actions of the government. Because that's the third big issue is the court going to order the government to do or not do something, and the government's going to be like, okay, we'll obey, and then behind closed doors they start doing it again anyway. Because we've seen quite a bit of that.
This is why I still envy the USA. That you can't be guilty of a crime if you haven't committed a crime. In the eyes of the police. You all might have seen this if you've seen what the fucking UK police are doing these days. Having said that, I have to wonder to what degree the FBI has the power to just take anyone who tries to hold them to account and just assassinate them and get away with it. If they can do it to a US president, they can do it to literally anyone in the world and get away with it. I know it wasn't them who did John F. Kennedy, and that was the CIA. Everyone knows that. We're allowed to know that. Yeah, if rest assured, if social media companies existed in the 60s, they would have banned everyone from saying so, and that's how you would know it would be true. But the CIA deals with foreign interventions. The FBI deals with domestic interventions, at least ostensibly. And under the rubric of the increasingly corrupt Democrat Party, the deep state has outwardly and unapologetically set its sights on hyper-policing the American people rather than hyper-policing the world. Or at least more so in the former. So at this point, it's the FBI doing the lion's share of the shady shit. I'm sure the CIA is still causing all kinds of chaos overseas, but at least they are able to hide it for the most part. Or at least Biden and his administration seem to be doing a thorough job of instigating a world war all by themselves, or whoever's puppeteering Biden anyway. Meanwhile, the FBI's domestic tyranny shenanigans are so visible and so haphazardly bumbled that it's obvious and undeniable at this point to anyone who scratches the surface. And I'm sure that back in 2009, after a certain regime change, there were so few dissenters against the new regime that they could easily be picked off and neutralized one by one. But at this point, there are so many dissenters that you can't possibly arrest everyone. So many people are savvy to this nonsense that when an obvious Fed tries to coax everyone into a false flag, everyone around him instinctively chants, no, Fed, etc. And then when Ray Epps mysteriously walks free to this day, it's not even mysterious. Everyone knows what's going on. Everyone except the oblivious normies and the sinister Democrat shills. I mean, that's far from everyone, obviously. But like I say, it's too many people to arrest, let alone assassinate. So what needs to happen next is for politicians to follow suit with what the general public already knows. Everyone in the Republican Party needs to get on the same page and make it an explicit policy going into the midterms that they will defund the FBI, if not completely dismantle it. You're not going to get a clean sweep across the party. Clearly, a lot of them are slimy rhinos who are just as corrupt as the Democrats, and they're in the same pocket. All the more reason to make sure that everyone who isn't in that pocket should show some solidarity and sprint as swiftly as possible in the other direction. They can assassinate one of you and get away with it, but not most of you. And even if there's anyone in the Democrat Party who can see the writing on the wall, follow Tulsi Gabbard's example and leave that swamp. Go independent, go libertarian, whatever. But you need to jump ship as soon as possible and as vocally as possible, because you're on the cusp of the big brother future. I say this not just because it will eventually trickle down to my own country, as these things do, but because I also happen to be quite fond of the American people. This is an emergency. I'm not holding my breath when it comes to Democrats, of course. Tulsi is something of a unicorn, and this is all probably unicorn pie in the sky. But just in case you were thinking about it, do it now. Do it before Tulsi gets Epsteined as well. I'm calling it now. Please do uncall it with your actions and make haste. Make haste, I say.
The really rough thing is it can't be done incredibly quickly because of the way our federal government is set up and because of the way that our lower governments and local governments actually engage with it and everything. You have different election cycles. Governors and the president are every 4 years, and then you have senators are every 6 years, right? And so you have people in office for odd amounts of time, and you have people that are going to, like, in one election cycle, part of your senators might be voted out, but you would still have, basically swamp rats in there. And you're going to have to go through a cycle of about 12 years to 20 years of voting people out of office if they are swamp rats, and voting people out of office who pretend not to be swamp rats, and then they get in there and you can tell by their behavior that they are swamp rats, and voting people out of your local city council who align themselves with the swamp rats or who are infected with the woke mind virus, which is very much a real thing, and that's going to take some time. But it has to start immediately. There isn't some, well, I would like to see this happen first, and then I'll go for that. Whatever it is, it's not good if you need them to do it. And if it is good, you don't need them to do it. You work with people who are honest and have integrity and are dedicated at least to upholding the United States Constitution instead of rewriting it or tearing it down. And that's it. I mean, you can't. You have to set the machine in motion, and you can't do that while still holding on to an attachment to the idea that any of the swamp rats are okay to support.
Well, all of that's well said. I don't have anything to add, so I guess we can move on. Unless somebody else has anything. All right. So let us know what you guys think about this story in the comments. And yeah, just give us your thoughts. All right. So next up, we have a story that it's going to sound awful, but it does have a happy ending. Like, terms of what should happen. A North Carolina stepmother is facing charges of attempted murder, felony child abuse, and malicious castration after her 5-year-old stepson...
What the hell is malicious castration? As opposed to scientific castration. Oh.
Like non-malicious castration?
I think they're opening up.
Yeah.
I think they're opening up for Aussie this year. Malicious castration.
Legalese is weird sometimes.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
All right, so she's facing charges of attempted murder, felony child abuse, and malicious castration after her 5-year-old stepson was brought to the Wilson Medical Center Emergency Department on July 29th with horrifying third-degree burns and other injuries. Police described the case as horrific. Medics found bruising to the child's face, arms, head, legs, and genital area. Some injuries seem to have been inflicted previously and in the process of healing. So it was like, not just this one incident. It's abuse over a period of time.
But at least he's healing, which not every victim of castration is able to go through.
Yeah, there you go. The child's burns were so severe that he had to be moved to the University of North Carolina Burn Center for further treatment. He is still undergoing treatment for his wounds, like right now. Gracie Renee Bird, 33, this is the woman who did this, was arrested on September the 30th and charged with attempted murder, felony child abuse, and inflicting serious bodily injury, malicious castration, first-degree kidnapping, and 3 counts of felony child abuse with physical injury. According to the Daily Mail, Bird's husband, Timothy Dean Bird, passed away on September the 8th, 2021. He left 3 children in her care, including 2 who were adopted in 2019. The stepmother is being held in custody on a $2 million secure bond.
Woo, lad. So, when's this bitch gonna get a 10-part Netflix series? Hey? Oh, we're going to see a dramatic reenactment of these events anytime soon. I mean, nothing would surprise me on Netflix, but I'm going to say probably not. Most of the people who get off on these kinds of horrifying true crime stories are wine box drinking soccer moms, but methinks this kind of thing would perhaps hit a little too close to home, eh? For Netflix to romanticize this sort of thing would be even further into the realm of dangerously irresponsible. Would it be wrong or exaggerated for me to say that for every Jeffrey Dahmer out there who tortured 17 victims over the course of several years, there are at least 17 women out there who tortured 1 victim, perhaps at least 17 times over the course of several years? The murder aspect certainly makes it worse, but the point is, violent psychopaths tend to be opportunists. They take the path of least resistance. This might explain why the majority of serial killers are male, but the majority of child torturers are female. Jeffrey Dahmer was able to kill men because he had access to men. Ted Bundy was able to kill women because he had access to women. Both of them were superficially charming to their preferred demographic. This woman had access to children. Maybe the reason female violent psychopaths don't serially kill people is because they tend to have such easy access to children. Children who are not allowed to even escape the apartment in the first place. So she doesn't even need to kill them. She can just torture them over and over again. And if the child wanders out into the street with an acid-filled hole drilled in his head, what do you think the police will do? If his stepmother turns up and says, he's my son, he's just tired and he's being silly. It's not even that the police will trust a woman by default. It's that they mistrust males by default. If a naked 14-year-old girl is found wandering around outside an apartment complex in a stupor, the police will rescue her. They will not take the word of some creepy 30-year-old man who claims to be her boyfriend, or even her father. But a 14-year-old boy, fuck him. We're the police. We're not here to save 14-year-old boys. We're here to arrest them. This kid's lucky he's naked, or we would have planted drugs around his person and then taken him to the station and raped him ourselves. So yes, I did watch the Dharma series on Netflix. Yes, it was inevitable that I would feel compelled to point out what nobody else is pointing out. It wasn't that his victims were black. It wasn't that his victims were gay. It's that his victims were male. That's not just why he got away with it for so long. It's why everyone is so openly and romantically fascinated by his story. You're not going to see a Netflix series about Ted Bundy because his victims were women, and it's unacceptable to stand on the bodies of female victims just for your entertainment dollar. And that's why you're never going to see any documentaries on the phenomenon of women who torture their own captive children and get away with it for years, because it's unacceptable to even highlight the existence of these female monsters, let alone capitalize on them. It's probably hate speech or something, and PayPal will charge you $2,500 every time you do it. Stop.
There's actually quite a lot of them, women that have there's female serial killers, and there are a lot of them that their victims were primarily children, and then there are also female mass murderers, female school shooters. In fact, probably the first famous school shooting of the later 20th century, because there were school shootings as soon as there were schools, but they were not, and they weren't the same. I can put it that way. And the first famous school shooter of the 20th century, the later part of the 20th century, was female. And a group called the Boomtown Rats wrote a song about her called "I Don't Like Mondays," because that was her answer when she was asked why she did what she did, and it was just her being flippant. She didn't have a real reason, and she said that later. This woman was nuts either because of grief when she lost her boyfriend, or before that. And we don't know, but after posting this in our news chat, I found her TikTok. I wish I hadn't. She looks kind of like she's my age. I don't think she is. I think she's just that hard-lived of a woman. But I could be wrong. She could be a cougar. But it's kind of hard to call somebody that dates a 33-year-old a cougar. But that's like a 20-year difference there.
Yeah. So are you
I'm
talking
50.
about
so yeah.
the woman?
But I mean, she really does. She looks like she's my age.
Yeah.
In her TikTok, and it's basically it's the TikTok of a woman trying to revisit her younger sexual attractiveness, regain the sexual power of her youth. Like, she's doing the same things on her TikTok that the 12 to 24-year-old set are doing with music and stuff. And occasionally she mentions her grief and goes on a really inarticulate kind of crazy rant. And like, having watched that and then having seen this story and everything, all I can think of is, if I were a cop, I looked at all of this, I would want to revisit the cause of her. She's 33. It's her that's 33, huh? In the story. But I would want to revisit the cause of death in the boyfriend's death, because there's something screwy there, or as husband, I guess. But she's messed up enough. She seems train wrecky enough that I would be very concerned about how Timothy Dean Bird died, and the news stories don't say. So unless it was something like a disease, or something like cancer, where you know that that's probably the cause of death. But even in those cases, it's possible that it's not. Like I would want to open a case and reinvestigate that after learning what she did to the child, because it's very possible. And probably if it was her that died, and then the widower had come along and done something terrible to her daughter, there would be an investigation. Did the widower also do things to contribute to or cause her death? But I don't expect there to actually be such an investigation in this case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, well, all I will say is it's a good thing that she did end up going to jail. And,
Yeah.
Because even with these kinds of extreme circumstances, sometimes women get out of it. So it doesn't look like she's going to. And I hope that the real sad thing is that, like, this boy, he lost his father. Well, all the kids did. There's
Right.
I think there's 3 kids is what it is. So this boy lost his father, and he's lost, like, someone that, if she wasn't such a psycho bitch, could have been his mother. And so now he's kind of on his own or something. I don't know. Are they going to put him in foster care? Probably, I guess. But we'll see. So, all right, let us know what you guys think about this story in the comments. And I'm going to move on to the next one. This is, hold on. Yeah, we're talking about Florida and the vaccine. So, Mike J, I'm going to hand the floor to you.
Well, thank you, Brian. So, bombshell new study in Florida. Dr. Joseph A. Ladapo, Surgeon General for the state of Florida, recommended boys and men age 18 to 39 avoid taking the mRNA-based COVID-19 vaccines. Florida's Department of Health announced this new guidance last week through a press release. The release referenced a new study that was conducted, which revealed something shocking. The study reported a, quote, 84% increase. I'm going to say it again, 84% increase in the relative incidence of cardiac-related death among males 18 to 39 years old within 28 days following mRNA vaccination, end quote. The press release recommended that, quote, with a high level of global immunity to COVID-19, the benefit of vaccination is likely outweighed by this abnormally high risk of cardiac-related death among men in this age group. Non-mRNA vaccines were not found to have these increased risks, end quote. Dr. Ladapo was vocal about this new study, stating, quote, studying the safety and efficacy of any medications, including vaccines, is an important component of public health. Far less attention has been paid to safety, and the concerns of many individuals have been dismissed. These are important findings that should be communicated to Floridians, end quote. Dr. Ladapo also took to Twitter to share Florida's new guidance as well as this new study, where he linked to the guidance press release. This tweet was unexpectedly and without reason removed from the platform, but mysteriously found its way back shortly after.
Right. So, strap in because I have a lot to say. At this point, it's common knowledge that these jabs do not prevent you from getting COVID. Never mind, quote unquote, the science. We all know this from our own experience. We all know multiple people, even in our closest circle of friends and family, who got these jabs and then got COVID anyway. We were told that this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, but it's now universally confirmed that this was a lie. We were told that the jabs would prevent the transmission of COVID. But again, we all know that those jabbed people who caught COVID went on to transmit to the other jabbed people around them. So that was also a lie. We were told that the side effects, actually, I won't call them side effects because the apparently intended beneficial effects turned out to be lies. So the medical complaints caused by these jabs are not side effects; they are the only effects. So let's just call them the deleterious effects. We were told the deleterious effects of these jabs were rare to the point of vanishing. Slowly but surely, we're discovering that this was also a lie. And this is only based on what we've seen in a year or so, or after a month or so, or after a day or so. God knows what we're going to see after a decade or so. This is why vaccines take decades to safely develop, because the deleterious effects can take up to decades to manifest. Our various governments are absolutely determined to get these shots into every member of the public. Orders of magnitude more than they've ever tried to enforce any, real vaccine. Even though this is by far and away the worst excuse for a vaccine anyone has ever produced. And you would have to be indescribably stupid not to at least be asking why. Why are our governments trying to force this serum into everyone? To recap, it's not to prevent any diseases. We know this now. So why are they doing it? What else can injections be used for other than preventing disease? It's a highly perturbing and unnerving question, isn't it? I'm sure you can all think of several answers, but they're all extremely sinister, aren't they? I'm going to insert a few more pregnant pauses for a few more seconds so that you've got your answers fresh in your head before I say what you're already thinking. You can use injections to sedate people, you can use injections to sterilize people, and you can use injections to kill people. I'll leave it there for now. I'm unaware of what can be achieved with nanotechnology, but I don't need such conjecture for where I'm going with this. We come now to this story and why we're covering it on a show principally concerned with men's issues. Whatever these injections are doing, by all accounts, or at least by this account, they appear to be disproportionately affecting men. Affecting them specifically, in this case, with death. Why do you suppose that is? Maybe it's all a coincidence that just so happens to affect men. That's very possible, but I would remind you, our various world governments are still determined, despite all the evidence, determined to pump this serum into the entire population, even long beyond the point that they know it's not preventing any diseases. And I would further remind you that we're long past the point at which it was considered unthinkably radical to reduce the male population from 49% to 10%. I would pose to you the question, what would it look like if the powers that be, after the influence of a century of increasingly radical feminism, ever pushing the Overton window further and further, what would it look like? How would it manifest if they found a way to exact a certain final solution on us all? use your imagination, folks. Then look across at what's happening right now. I hope you have a stiff drink to hand and that you're sitting down. I certainly do, and I certainly am. And I will now lean back and drink it. Discuss.
Just want to remind everybody, because that's a very poignant statement, very important point, that the other the flip of that is what was used to guilt trip people into taking the jab. What was used to justify all of the mandates, right? They didn't say, even though both the virus and the vaccine, the harmful effects of both affected primarily males. They didn't say, do this or you're going to kill grandpa. They said, do this or you're going to kill grandma. You have to get the shot to protect grandma. You have to wear your mask to protect grandma. Grandma, who was less likely to be affected than grandpa. And grandpa had to get the shot to protect grandma, right? Grandson had to get the shot and stay indoors and wear a mask and learn to be obedient to protect grandma. When we discussed the women of the Nazi regime last week on HBR Talk, I made a point about something else that's important to realize in this instance. If a hostile society, civilization, wanted to take over a culture with the most effective and efficient and least difficult effort to take over that culture, they would get rid of the men, or they would brainwash the men. Those were the two things that they would do. Because if they did those two things, and the men were no longer a wall of protection against that civilization that the women of the culture could rely on to protect them from that civilization, the women would join the new civilization. They would become part of the new culture. That culture would take over, and any men who resisted would then be, with the approval of the women, put to death. And that is how that is how this looks like it's going, right? We have a combination of things that target men with ill effects, not just the virus and the vaccine, but although feminists played female victim of the lockdowns, it's men who go out and make the country run. It's men who go out and keep the infrastructure going. It's men who go out and maintain the utilities, right? So, and it's men who transport, for the most part, the goods that everybody buys. When it comes to services that involve protection against threats, that's done by men too. Military is almost entirely men. It's like 14% women, and many of those women are not in combat positions. Like, most of those women are not in positions that involve direct conflict with any invader, right? Or the ability to invade. Like, they're behind a computer, or they're in a medical facility that's here in the United States, not overseas, right? So that really makes this 10 times creepier in terms of its impact. And they measured what it did to young men, right? Young men are the ones that if we had to defend against a hostile, aggressive society or culture, civilization, nation, they're the ones, that's the age group that would be called into service. That's the age group where everybody that stepped up to go into service would come from. And that's the age group that seems to be targeted. Doesn't mean that among older men that the deaths weren't also increased and that that's not suspect. It's a lot harder to tell in a lot of older men's cases, especially boomers, because our culture's diet destroyed the boomer metabolism to the degree, and Gen X's metabolism as well, to the degree that the symptoms of diabetes, the deadly symptoms of diabetes, could be attributed as cause for many of the deaths that could also be attributed to the jab. So it's you can't really determine it as easily among, say, the over 40 set, but 18 to 39, it hasn't hit them yet, right? They haven't had those metabolic issues yet, for the most part. Like, there's some that have, but here you have this 84% increase in cardiac related death is just insane. Like that's targeted. And it's possible that it wasn't even the intention behind the use of mRNA and the jab. It's possible that it was the intention behind the virus itself, and using the mRNA from the virus carried that effect into the jab. But why would we take the chance? The drug companies that did that should be investigated. And again, the agency that funded that research should be investigated. And it should be an anal probe investigation so thorough that by the time they get done, should be able to count the cavities on the backside of the teeth of the people involved. Because this is really serious. And again, this is exactly what a hostile, aggressive culture trying to take over another culture would do if they were trying to find the most efficient, effective, and least dangerous to themselves way of engaging in the takeover. And on a side note, I just want to point out one other thing. We have no way of knowing if any news at all coming out of China is real. There may be no effects whatsoever. The epidemic in China could be real, could be happening, could be a result of a lab accident, could be entirely fucking fake. Every video you see, every person you've heard from, everyone who has been on any news channel, that all could be entirely mocked up. We have no way of knowing. None. So don't count on the idea that, oh, well, they accidentally did it to themselves. They're getting karma, blah, blah, blah. No. We need to focus on what's going on in our countries and what our governments have done and who among our governments have cooperated with the effort to, one, suppress therapeutic drugs that could have treated this virus effectively and efficiently and completely, and two, promote this jab and all of the other policies that were ineffective and damaging, because those are Gauleiters. Those are people that were collaborating with whatever effort was going on, right? Those are people that if there was something completely and utterly, like, apocalyptically nefarious going on, they were in on it. That's what we need to focus on, because that's where we're vulnerable. And that needs to change. And the one other thing we need to address is gynocentrism, because if we weren't a gynocentric society, this would not have been so easy to do to us.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Another thing interesting that popped up I saw today, as the show has been progressing here. I'm not going to pretend to know what European country this is, but they had a COVID hearing, and Pfizer's director there and admitted as part of the hearing that it was never tested on preventing transmission, the Pfizer vaccine. So the whole get vaccinated for others, do your part so you won't kill all the grandmas, that was all bullshit. Complete lie.
Well, of course. I mean, yeah, of course it was. But like the fear works, and it especially works on women.
Yeah.
Right? That's sad to say, but it's true.
Well, and it works on men if it is for women.
Yeah, it works yeah.
If you say that women's welfare is at stake, men will sacrifice themselves. Even if you don't prove it, there are men that will sacrifice themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, freedom is libertarian. Protection is authoritarian. And it's, I mean, how controversial is it at this point to say that women prefer protection and men prefer freedom?
Yep.
This is why I keep telling people safety nets are deadly. Right? You become complicit. You make stupid choices because you have a safety net. So, you're going to be okay. Except safety nets are very often a lie. Stupid choices often have repercussions that your safety net doesn't handle, even if it's not a lie. And they do make you unwilling to take risks that you need to take in order to actually be safe.
There's nothing more dangerous to the world than people who are convinced that they're saving it. And it sounds paradoxical, and it requires a lot of getting into the details to explain how that doesn't work. But yeah, it's trying to save the world will destroy the world. Letting people be, as bizarre as that sounds to you feminists and communists, letting people be will do a better job of saving the world than anything who actively tries to save the world.
Yep. True. And well, it's like you said, it's the position that men would prefer to be in. But if this is all about harming men, which it really looks like it is, then the people doing this must know that if you weaken, demoralize, or even just kill off the men, then you are removing resistance. So, all right.
I got to say something else about this I'll try to be as brief as possible on it. But years ago, when I was more active on Reddit, and gosh dang it, I can't think of his last name. John, he was one of the editors at A Voice for Men, and he's fairly well known. And the people have agreed and disagreed with things he said. There have been slap fights between him and A Voice for Men since then, and I think him and the Honey Badgers too. But he said something very important that I think men should pay attention to, and he got really reamed for it by even the men's rights movement community, and I think that was bullshit. And I said so at the time too, that reaming him for it was bullshit. And that was, he made a video. John the Other. That's why I couldn't think of his last name. I was trying to think of a last name, and he goes by John the Other. But he made this video, and I bet Wikipedia snippet knows what video I'm talking about too. That he was talking about men not being the bodyguards of the world, and why men shouldn't be obligated to be the bodyguards of the world. And he gave as an example, if I were to see a woman being mugged and beaten in the street, I wouldn't stop to help her because I don't know what's going on. It's not appreciated if I'm the bodyguard. I'm not obligated to risk myself for her safety and welfare just because she is a woman, and people just went off. But the reality is the expectation, right, the social obligation, and even the legal obligation now that men act as women's bodyguards based on our gynocentric attitudes in society are what lead to this kind of thing. We guilt men and shame men and heckle men and browbeat men into accepting that they are obligated to sacrifice themselves, to sacrifice their right to live nonviolent lives. And that's a right that people don't pay attention to. Your right to maintain a habit of non-aggression is bodily autonomy. You have the right to choose to not damage another person for any reason if you want to. You can be a pacifist if you want to, right? But when a man chooses to be a pacifist when a woman is crying for help, everybody goes apeshit. Everybody treats him like he's an aggressor. No, he's still maintaining pacifism. That's his choice. He has that right. He should have that right recognized, right? But we don't. And because we don't, we have a world in which all men of the age that this nefariousness targeted, whether we call it intentional or not, all men of that age were more susceptible to this because we require men as a society. We obligate men to that self-sacrifice, and including the sacrifice of their bodily autonomy, their right to determine whether or not violence is going to be a part of their actions, their right to determine whether or not they will be combatants in the next war. And so they are the primary targets if the potential combatants in the next war are being eliminated by another culture. That attitude, that bystander obligation among men put a huge fucking bullseye target on the heart of every young man in this country, every young man in whatever country you're living in. You should know that. You should be aware of it, and you should consider the possibility that it is malicious and evil to obligate men who are bystanders to be anything but bystanders just because they are men, and just because we have compassion for women when we wouldn't have compassion for men.
Yep. Through that. All right, so let us move on to the final story. Let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. But, you know, again, I'm glad that the info is out there. Yeah, we should have been talking about this years ago, but at least it's coming out now. So let us know what you guys think about that in the comments. Now we're going to move on to the final story, and we're going to be talking about Elon Musk. This like the saga. Is it finally coming to an end? Is it possible that this could be done? Well, let's find out. I know Thunderfoot's not happy about it. Anybody remember Thunderfoot? He hates Elon Musk. He hates him so much. It makes me like Elon Musk more.
Guys,
What is it?
What were you gonna say?
Did Thunderfoot tell you guys about the time he got kicked out of Free Thought blogs? He never discusses that. I just, just to throw that out.
What does he hate more, leftists or what leftists stand for? Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to mention that because I'm still subscribed to him, and it's mainly because I'm bad about unsubscribing from people. So this is like I subscribed to him in like 2010 or something.
Remember the atheist days? Remember the days of the
Yeah.
angry atheists? It was.
I do.
We thought we had the right idea about everything. Then
Yeah.
everything opened out to a so much bigger, scarier concept.
Well, I mostly got into him for his response videos to Anita Sarkeesian, but like once you've seen one of those, you've seen them all because it's like the same stuff. And
Thunderfoot did like 50 of them.
Yeah, and he did like 50 of them. And that's, it's fine. Like, but once you like really got like a more like a better understanding of feminism itself and like the history and everything, those videos are really trite. It's like he's just debunking specific arguments, but it's not going any deeper,
It's this discrepancy between socialism and gender socialism. It's just like shoe on head as well. Like I used to like shoe on head, but there's only so much you can take of a card carrying socialist who keeps pointing at the consequences of socialism and going, "Oh my God, you guys, I'm dead. I can't even."
Yeah.
And well, stop supporting socialists, you daft cunt.
Yeah. And it's like exactly. It's like I don't know. It's not very deep, and it hasn't been for a while. And I kind of have regrets. So, but anyway, I'm sorry. Big kind of detour. Let's come back to Elon Musk, a guy who does science and he's actually like building things. And he's not just making YouTube videos complaining about other people that are building things. So, Mike J.
So, a Delaware court has ruled that to avoid trial, Elon Musk will need to finish the purchase of Twitter, and he'll need to do it soon. Initially, Musk wanted out of the deal earlier this year, alleging that Twitter's data concerning the amount of bots on the platform was inaccurate. Twitter attempted to sue Musk to force him to buy the company. As the months continued, it appeared that Musk was willing to relent and go through with the deal, but in yet another twist, Twitter rebuffed Musk and insisted on continuing the litigation, alleging that Musk secretly had other intentions. Basically, that he was trying to just drag this out so he could maybe finagle something else or a better
like a lower
deal.
price or something. Yeah.
But now that the courts have ruled that Musk must close the deal before October 28th to avoid further legal complications.
Whatever that means. Like, ever since back in April, we've been wondering if Musk's intentions were to fix Twitter or just nuke it from orbit. Either way, that would be a blessing, obviously. Maybe his mind has changed this way and that over the last few months, and maybe he's occasionally listened to the part of his conscience telling him, it's not worth it, Elon. Twitter is an absolute stain on the earth and an irredeemable blight on humanity and cannot be saved. In that event, in the event that he has perhaps concluded this, what do you suppose he's going to do if he's forced to buy it? If you, ladies and gentlemen, if you were going to buy a used car, right? Perhaps your next door neighbor has had some clapped out Dodge Charger that does nothing but sit in the driveway pumping black smoke into the air and causing all manner of noise pollution all day and night. If you offered to buy that Dodge Charger in the hopes of souping it up and making it roadworthy again, and you offered your neighbor way above the feasible asking price for it, and they said, sure, we'll consider it. And then you said, hey, before we go through with this deal, can I ask you, have you been putting gasoline in this car or just, a 50-50 mixture of gasoline and hillbilly moonshine? And they responded, fuck you! I don't have to tell you that, you racist, white supremacist fuckboy. I'm going to make you pay the full original asking price, and there's nothing you can do about it. What do you suppose you would do, ladies and gentlemen, if you absolutely had to fork out the cash and buy that abomination of a vehicle? On receipt of it, would you try to replace all the burnt out parts at your further expense in the hope of one day being able to crunch it on down to the freeway and cruise around in your brand new ship of Theseus, despite already having access to your own personal fleet of Lamborghinis? Or perhaps, just maybe, would you instead tow that blown out abomination to the nearest abandoned parking lot, fill that motherfucker with propane, and apply it liberally with one of your Musk patented flamethrowers, and watch it burn violently into a blackened cinder, like the horrible and traumatic memory that it now represents to you? I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but I would seriously think of joining Gab and Minds and Getter and kissing goodbye to that hideous eyesore of a lemon on which you once thought you relied, because it is not long for this world. I for one welcome our new Twitter overlord, whatever the hell it is, because it can't possibly be worse than the previous Twitter. I was skeptical back in April that anything good would happen, but now I am gloriously cynical. I've never felt more smug and jubilatory at such a colossal sense of death and destruction. We don't need no water. Let the motherfucker burn. Burn, motherfucker, burn.
It is distinctly possible that he'll torch Twitter, but I have a suspicion that he won't, because he's very much a capitalist, at least in terms of his own income. I have not forgotten that he's advocated for universal basic income. So until he comes out and says, I don't think that's the way to go, I'm not going to call him an overall capitalist. But he at least is willing to capitalize on things. And like I said before, the internet is as much a place as it is a publication. So what he has just purchased is a publisher and a venue. And there are ways you can shore up and redeem both. And since it's a mix of publisher and venue, you have an interesting whole set of new ways as well. And if I were Elon Musk, I wouldn't even get rid of the bots. I would just label them bots. And if you get wrongly labeled a bot, I would provide you with a way other than to provide your financially connected, personally identifying information. So no driver's license, no nothing like that. But some way to prove that you are not a bot. And if you go through that process, then your bot label comes off, right? I would allow gimmick accounts that are automated, and as long as they carry the automated label and so on, I would allow all that. I would also start capitalizing on the use of the site as a venue as much as a publication. And the neat thing that you can do with both is, because it's online, you can expand it as much as you want. It doesn't have a size limit, aside from your ability to finance storage capacity for the things that you have to have permanently in place in order to run it, right? So you could have free sections and paid sections. You could have, your ability to personalize your account to the free level, and then more ability to personalize your account that you could pay for, because people will do that. You've seen that with like the social multi-user games, where people will buy faces, or they'll buy hair, they'll buy clothing, skins, different things that you can do to personalize your character or your account. And anything that has been done in those spaces could be done with something like Twitter. And then on top of that, because it's a publisher, you have ad sales that you can do. You have the ability to create events that are advertising events that can be promoted as things that people can get information from, where they know that they are getting their information on the product from the advertiser. And there are times when that's useful if you want to find out the features of a product and how the manufacturer recommends that it be used. And people do that with things like cooking appliances, where you get recipes and you get, this is the way that it works best. If you do this, you're going to fuck it up, that kind of thing. So he's got avenues to turn this into a profitable endeavor. And the bots don't necessarily interfere with that. But if you're only looking at it from the perspective of old school publishing, where you have, say, a newspaper or a magazine, and you're trying to run ads, and the number of users could be the equivalent of, say, the publication's circulation. When a publisher can say they have a high circulation, their ads are more valuable. You can charge more for them. And when they can't say that, their ads are less valuable because not as many people will see them. In internet publications, that's measured in things like unique page views and clicks, and whether people who see the page or the ad and click on it actually buy anything once they've visited the website that's being advertised, and so on. And he could look at something like Project Wonderful and allow the end user, like you or me, to purchase ad space. There's quite a bit that he could do, that he could make money on with this. Like, you can actually, if you used Project Wonderful, and I don't know if it's still around or not, but we used it. Honey Badger Radio used it a little bit a few years ago, several years ago actually, and you could spend as little as $5 to get a message out to a small audience. And if you had something that you felt would snowball in an environment where information wasn't being interfered with, that would be all it would take. Is you have a tweet that you want people to see, that you said, hey, I want people to know about this, and you spend $5 to get a number of unique page views, meaning it shows up in the feed of a number of individual accounts. There are people that would do that, especially if they could put political messages in those tweets and they wanted people to engage with them, or they could advertise a product or a fundraiser and stuff like that. Did it? Okay. So the Lost Rune said it shut down in June 11th of 2018. And that's sad because Google kind of had that market dominated, and it created environment. Google and Facebook have created an environment where something like Project Wonderful would have difficulty surviving, kind of drown them. But it was a good project, and it worked very well in its time. And I think you could do something like that with a site like Twitter. And if you just did not take ads from Google and Facebook, and the site did this, a sort of autonomously and in a closed environment where the ads on the site were site ads, this would work. So there's a lot of stuff that could be done. He has that capability. The really neat thing is he also has the capability to eliminate the censorship. And I think forcing him to go through with the purchase right before the beginning of November, like right in the end of October, might actually not serve the left very well. The leftists at Twitter, in doing that to him, are going to create a incentive for him to remove all of their censorship tools right before an election, which I think he should do. And I think that would be great. It would be interesting to watch what would happen. And if everybody's accounts could come back and information could be shared freely, that could result in, information being shared that might actually affect the vote, which Twitter might not be too happy about because they've been interfering with it. So that's just my 2 cents. And I'm a mixed fan, I guess you could say, with Musk, because like I said, I haven't forgotten him promoting universal basic welfare. But at the same time, I do recognize a brilliant mind when I see one, and he has the capability of doing great things with this if he so chooses, if he puts his mind to it and he seeks out advice from the right advisors and takes action very quickly. And I hope he does that, because it would be neat to see Twitter shape up instead of shipping out.
Fuck it, ship it out. It's a dead man walking. Fuck it, just burn it, Elon. Burn it. You know you want to.
Well, on the plus side, if he does do that, then all of the people on Twitter will have to find a new place to go, and the only thing that's available that I know of are all places that they have demonized as like right-wing echo chambers.
That would be so hilarious. Do it.
So they'd have to go to, like, I don't know which is the most popular, but like Gab or Parler or
there's Parler, there's Getter, there's Truth Social. Everybody likes Truth Social if they like Trump because he's on it. Like,
I think that Truth Social might have to be the place if he does this, because then Trump is there, and we'll be really entertained. So
and
at the very least,
Mastodon.
What?
There's Mastodon as well.
Mastodon, yeah. See, but that's another. Well, I don't know. There's a little bit of a downside to that, because if you have too many places, then people are going to be like, kind of like scattered, because some people are on Truth Social, some people are on Getter, some people are on Gab, and I think it's not like a real town square situation, because
competition breeds excellence.
Yeah, I think it does.
I know these what I'm going to call leftists, for the sake of this conversation, don't like competition. They would rather just have one thing that controls everything. But this is why we promote not nationalism, but any opposition to globalism. Because you know how your internet provider, if they have no competition, they can do anything they like. They can just say, "Well, fuck you. There's no alternative, so you have to do whatever we say." And it's the same. It's the same in any other area of marketing. If there's no competition, then they don't have to compete with anyone else, so they can just do what they like with you, and they can just use you as your plaything. If there's no competition, then the only thing left is tyranny. And this is why we need competition. This is why we need what I'm going to call capitalism, just to go along with what the communists say.
Yeah,
but that's capitalism is a term invented by communists to demonize private enterprise and private businesses and private property. But yeah, this goes all the way back to the earliest machinations of human nature. Competition is good, because without competition, there is nothing left but tyranny, an unchallengeable tyranny. So as long as we are to exist, we're going to need competition. We're going to need the entities, both human and machine, competing with each other, because otherwise we get the Big Brother future. And does anyone want the Big Brother future? In all honesty, no.
Well, it's really going to be like a Big Sister future, I think. But yeah. I mean, it's going to be feminine in orientation, so I'm going to call it Big Sister or Big Mom, Big Mama.
Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah.
Big damsel.
So, but the thing I was going to add is, okay, what I would like to see is, let's say he gets rid of Twitter, and then you got all of these other sites that are like Twitter, before it was removed. And some people are on some of them, some people are not. So I guess what the best solution to that, because you want to be able to reach as many people as possible when you make a post, someone would have to come up with like a meta program that posts to all of those places. So if I make a tweet,
like similar to Restream.
Yeah, and if I make a tweet and I send it, then it goes to Getter, Parler, Gab, Truth Social, everywhere. This and that way I don't have to go to each one separately. I mean, not that it would be that much trouble, but you want to like just make sure that you're reaching as many people as possible. So since we don't all know which of those platforms is the largest, because I don't know if we have a clear idea of that, and because of all the bots on Twitter, we don't even know how big Twitter actually is, because it's probably a lot smaller than we think, with a lot fewer users than we think, which is probably why Musk was having second thoughts. But if we can either get rid of it, or he decides to keep it and fix it or whatever, we could. It wouldn't matter if we use it or not, because if we had this meta thing, we could just post on all those places at the same time. And it seems to me that that makes the most sense, and it might even help us see who is winning in terms of like where are the users. I don't know if it would work, but I that's my thought. Is that
the one that would end up being the biggest. The one that would end up being the biggest would be the one that figures out how to do that first, because then they would get people using their site to do that with the other sites.
Yeah.
They figured this out 10 years ago by just letting people do what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. This is why YouTube was so much more popular 10 years ago, before they introduced all those draconian rules. And this is why we had to create alternative platforms.
Those were the days. Anyway, so those are just my thoughts on like a potential fix. I think that because assuming that people don't get too authoritarian, somebody will probably just come up with something like that anyways at some point, and it'll probably be given away for free, and people will probably just download it, because it's essentially like Hannah said. You know what it reminds me of? This going way back. Do you guys remember Trillion? So it was like,
I remember Trillion.
You remember Trillion? So
I remember the days of MSN Messenger that made Trillion necessary.
Yes, exactly. So like, exactly. So you had like all of these messaging apps, like you were on Yahoo, or you were on AOL, or MSN, or whatever. And Trillion was like this really convenient app that you would open, and it basically had every account you were on in every instant messaging app that Trillion had in its, database or whatever. And that's what I'm talking about. I thought that was, pretty great. So think about that.
And until it falls into the wrong hands.
Yeah, I don't know whatever happened at Trillion. I assume that it's probably gone because all of the messaging apps are basically obsolete. But
this is what I'm saying. The idea of Trillion is like the idea of what Elon Musk is calling the X app.
Yeah.
Like, it's a good idea as long as there's alternatives.
Yeah, absolutely.
If there's no alternatives, we're doomed.
Mm-hmm. All right, so with all that said, let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. I have a couple of super chats and super chows, and then we're gonna wrap this on up. And we're gonna check out this video from Steve Harvey called it's like the longest dating requirements list. So we'll see what it is this woman has in terms of her standards in the patron show. All right, so Albert Nader Retro gives us $2 Canadian and says, hit F for Miss Angela Lansbury, who earlier today, and then he adds another one. for $2 Canadian says, hit F for Angela Lansbury, who passed away earlier. Yes, we mentioned it at the beginning of the show. But if you guys want to F for Angela Lansbury, go for it. And
normally we only do obituaries for famous men. I don't know why we stuck our neck out for Angela Lansbury. Is she a de facto man? What's going on there?
I don't know. I just saw that, and I guess when you get old enough, I don't really, I mean, because we talked about the Queen a little bit too. So I think when you get up there, I guess
talked more about Angela Lansbury than we talked about the Queen. Just saying.
Yeah, I know. It's weird.
That's kind of fitting, though. Most of us have more exposure to Angela Lansbury than the Queen.
Speak for yourselves.
Yeah, besides you.
It's a little surreal, but thank you for the super chats. And then Albert Nader Retro gives us $2 Canadian and says, by the way, Thunderfoot just put up a video yesterday. That's what I was saying. I said that he put up a video that I saw today on my feed where he's basically complaining about Musk.
I can't understand what he's saying. He's better than me.
Yeah. All right. So thank you for the super chats. Now super chows. Meredith G gives us $5 and says, for HBR News number 377, honey for the Badgers. YouTube doesn't need to get a cut of my money anymore if I can tip you another way. Well, you could certainly do this. Thank you, Meredith. Michael Emmerich Windberg gives us $5 and says, concerning the shots, you mean like whiskey shots? I'm going to go with that.
I wonder what he might be talking about.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you guys heard of the California Assembly Bill 2098? It allows the state to charge doctors if they, in their words, quote, disseminate misinformation or disinformation related to COVID-19, end quote. For anyone thinking that, quote, COVID is old news, lol, end quote, you may have another thing coming. That's a pretty good song, right? Have another thing coming.
Yeah. Like I said, Gauleiters.
Yeah. And so thank you for that, Michael. Yes, California's pretty fucked. Zaranx then gives us $5 on a super chat and says, if you know Craig Ferguson, he's a Scottish comedian, right? Is that who that is? He had a bit.
He had that talk show, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so. It was like a late
show.
I don't know. Yeah, Craig Ferguson. I know him for his bit on Sean Connery, which is quite hilarious. If you know Craig Ferguson, he had a bit where he'd refer to Angela Lansbury as Paul McCartney and vice versa.
What?
I can see it. They do look a little similar.
They might be related, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Zaranx. All right. So now we're going to head out and go into the after show where we will be discussing this article, or not article. It's a video from YouTube that is about some chick on Steve Harvey that's trying to figure out why she can't find a man, despite the fact that she has a clear, extensive list of requirements. So maybe if you guys want to join us, you have to become a Badger by going to feedthebadger.com. $5 a month will get you into the Discord, where you'll be able to watch the additional content. And if you give it higher levels, you can be a part of the discussion itself and even share with us your 2 cents. All right. So if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. I just got another super chat. I guess I'll read it really quick. $5 Canadian from Albert Nader Retro. He says, Ferguson used to host the Late Late Show. He should take over for Trevor Noah now. I guess.
Lol.
I don't know. I mean, it will be funnier, probably. But I think that maybe Craig Ferguson still cares about his immortal soul and won't do it, but I don't know. Maybe he would. All right. So anyway, if you like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed, and most importantly, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News, and we will talk to you all in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.